Okay, picture this. It's 2007, and Singapore Airlines is about to make a bet so big it would literally change the skies. We're talking about them being the very first airline to fly the Airbus A380, the largest passenger jet ever built. This wasn't just them buying a new plane. No, this was an $8.6 billion gamble, a bet that bigger was better and that the future of air travel was massive. And it all kicked off with one single historic flight.
So, let me ask you, how much would you pay to be a part of aviation history? $1,000? $10,000? Well, get this. On the A380's very first commercial flight, somebody paid $100,380 for one seat. Now, to be fair, all the money went to charity, which is great. But still, that number just screams how much hype, how much excitement was wrapped up in this plane's debut. And believe me, this wasn't your average first flight. Not at all. This thing was a global media event. It was a star-studded party in the sky, with champagne flowing and private suites. It was even broadcast live in some places. I mean, the whole world was glued to their screens, completely captivated by this idea of a new queen of the skies. And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Why? Why did Singapore Airlines, an airline from a relatively small country, bet its entire reputation on this one giant plane? And now, with the benefit of hindsight, did that massive gamble actually pay off? All right, let's dive into our first section, the Superjumbo bet. To really get why this was such a huge deal, we've got to rewind the clock to the late 90s. Back then, you had the two titans of aviation, Airbus and Boeing, with two completely different ideas about where air travel was headed. So on one side, you had Airbus, and they were all in on something called the hub-and-spoke model. The idea was pretty simple, really. They thought the future was all about funneling passengers into these massive superjumbo jets and flying them between huge major airports, think Singapore, London, Dubai. From there, you'd catch a smaller plane to your final destination. So you had these two totally opposite philosophies, right? Airbus was betting on consolidation. Fewer flights, but way bigger planes, all connecting through these mega hubs. Boeing, on the other hand, bet on the exact opposite, fragmentation. They thought, no, let's build smaller, super efficient jets that can fly directly between all sorts of cities, not just the big ones. Now, if you're Singapore Airlines and your entire business model is built around the world-class Changi Airport hub, well, the choice seemed pretty clear, didn't it? They planted their flag firmly in the Airbus A380 camp. Okay, on to Section 2, Queen of the Skies. And you know what? For the first few years, it really looked like Singapore Airlines had made the perfect call. I mean, the honeymoon period for the A380 was absolutely spectacular. The day they got their very first A380, the airline's CEO came out and just declared it, the new Queen of the Skies. That wasn't just marketing speak. That was a direct shot at the Boeing 747, which had ruled the skies for decades. It was this huge moment of pride. And because this plane was so ridiculously big, Singapore Airlines could do things nobody had ever seen before. We're talking private suites with actual sliding doors. And get this, center suites that could be combined to make a full double bed. In the sky. It really wasn't just a plane anymore. It was basically a 5-star hotel with wings. And the best part, the numbers actually backed up all the hype. The plane was super quiet, the ride was incredibly smooth, and for its size, it was shockingly efficient. It was burning 20% less fuel per seat than the old 747s it was replacing. I mean, at this point, the gamble was looking like an absolute stroke of genius. Which brings us to Section 3, a costly crown. Because as it turns out, wearing that crown was expensive. And pretty soon, the harsh, cold reality of what it actually takes to operate a beast like this started to bite back. Hard. I want you to think about this number for a second. $30,000. That's roughly how much it costs to run the A380 for just 1 hour in the air. So you take a long flight, say 14 hours from Singapore to London, you're looking at almost $500,000 just to run the plane. That's before you've made a single penny of profit. Now, to cover costs that high, you have to do one thing, fill the plane. Every single time. And that, right there, was the A380's fatal flaw. Just to break even, just to not lose money, an A380 needed to be about 85% full. To put that in perspective, a smaller, more efficient jet like the Boeing 787, it can break even at around 65% full. That difference is huge. It left the A380 with almost no room for error. And this is where it gets really interesting. Here's the paradox that kind of doomed the A380's original promise. To install all those incredible suites and spacious lounges, the very things that made it famous, Singapore Airlines had to take out a bunch of regular seats. But the whole economic argument for the plane was its low cost per seat. So by removing seats, they were actually weakening their own business case. The luxury was amazing for marketing for sure, but it completely torpedoed the plane's efficiency. All right, Section 4, Grounded and Reborn. Just when things were looking tough, a global crisis hit that almost finished the Superjumbo off for good. It was a plot twist that absolutely nobody saw coming.
Even before 2020, you could see the writing on the wall. The airline actually retired its very first A380 after only 10 years of service, which is super short. Then, of course, the pandemic hits, air travel just stops, and these massive jets get flown out to a desert storage facility in Australia. Pretty much everyone thought, well, that's it, it's over. But then, something crazy happened. In a total reversal, Singapore Airlines decided to wake them up and bring them back.
And they came back with a whole new strategy. It was really decisive. First, they cut the fleet way down, getting rid of 7 of the oldest A380s for good. But for the 12 they kept, they went all in. They poured millions into refurbishing them, turning them into these ultra-luxurious, top-of-the-line flagships. The idea was to have a smaller, but much more elite Superjumbo fleet.
And that brings us to our final section, the final chapter. Look, the A380 is clearly not the future of the entire airline anymore. But what it has done is found itself a very specific, very powerful new role.
Yeah, today, you can think of the A380 as a specialist tool. It's basically a strategic weapon that Singapore Airlines deploys on its most important routes, the ones with huge demand but very limited landing slots, like London and Sydney. It's perfect for soaking up all that peak holiday traffic. And maybe just as important, it's a giant flying billboard that screams luxury and showcases the very best of the brand.
And you can see the airline's new philosophy perfectly when you look at the plane that's set to replace the A380, the Boeing 770-79. It tells you everything you need to know. 4 huge engines are being replaced by just 2. The focus is no longer on sheer size and capacity. It's all about fuel efficiency now. The era of the Superjumbo is officially making way for the era of the super-efficient twin-engine jet.
So let's circle all the way back to that first question. Did the big gamble pay off? Honestly, maybe the best way to describe the A380 is as a brilliant failure. It absolutely failed to change air travel forever like Airbus predicted, but for more than a decade, it gave Singapore Airlines this incredible icon of luxury. It was a flagship that the whole world talked about, and that gave them a competitive edge that you could argue they're still benefiting from today. So what do you think? Was it worth it?